Things are heating up in the major antitrust case against Meta, where the social media giant is accused of unfairly dominating the market. Yesterday, attorneys representing the Federal Trade Commission presented an email written by CEO Mark Zuckerberg back in 2018. It showed that he once considered making Instagram a separate company. The email reads in part, quote, "I'm beginning to wonder whether spinning Instagram out is the only structure that will accomplish a number of important goals. As calls to break up the big tech companies grow, there is a non-trivial chance that we will be forced to spin out Instagram and perhaps WhatsApp in the next 5 to 10 years anyway." Zuckerberg took the stand for a second time yesterday. Meta argues the lawsuit fails to acknowledge current tech rivals like TikTok. NBC News business and data correspondent Brian Chung is here to break it all down for us. Let's start with what came out of yesterday's court hearing. What did we hear there?
Yeah, again, day two of Mark Zuckerberg appearing in court, trying to explain the company's strategy when they bought Instagram, the photo sharing app, as well as WhatsApp, the messaging app, which the FTC and the government are alleging is a monopoly. Now, what was interesting about yesterday's proceedings was that they went through a treasure trove of emails. The one that you mentioned is worth noting, but I also want to note that they also brought up some emails where apparently Mark Zuckerberg was entertaining the idea of Facebook potentially buying Snapchat. They ultimately decided that wasn't the right acquisition, the right fit for them. They went for Instagram and WhatsApp instead. And that email, as you mentioned, has been the one that's been garnering the most attention. This email where he was noting, well, even after the acquisition, at some point down the line, because of antitrust scrutiny, maybe they'll have to divest those companies. Now, if that is a smoking gun for the government, the company is pushing back. They're arguing that that was just scenario planning given the political rhetoric of the time. And kind of the argument is that, all right, well, if the government wants to say that is the case for this company being a monopoly, well, then they also have to prove that they use their scale and their also massive size to basically bully the competition, which they say is kind of ignored in this case because TikTok is not mentioned as one of those competitors.
Clearly a lot of scrutiny of Zuckerberg here. What has he been saying on the stand?
Yeah, well, I mean, he's been answering a lot of questions because, again, he is the witness for the government. So it's the FTC's lawyers that are trying to press Mark Zuckerberg into saying something that they can kind of put into the record and show to a judge to show, hey, this is a guy that was intent on building an empire that was going to abuse its powers. Now, Mark Zuckerberg offering kind of just thoughts on the emails that they've been bringing up, saying, yes, I remember that email, I don't remember that email, what have you. But again, he is not necessarily offering anything that's particularly new with regards to what we know about the WhatsApp and the Instagram acquisitions. That was kind of part of their strategy to get into other types of businesses and other types of social media that the traditional Facebook website didn't have. But again, we'll have to see over this, what could be a multi-month proceedings, whether or not a judge does see the government's case is convincing enough to want to maybe break this company up.
You heard that right. Multi-months. This could go on for months. This is not a quick process at all. But if Meta does lose this, what is at stake for the company?
Yeah, what would be at stake would be them having to divest WhatsApp and or Instagram or spin it off. And that could be a big thing for Meta, which is really trying to lean into using all of its platforms and incorporating its AI tools. They've been doing that slowly across Facebook, Instagram. WhatsApp wouldn't be able to do that if it were the case that they would be a separate company. So this would be a pretty substantial breakup and something I imagine other big tech companies are watching as well. When you think about Google, you think about Apple. They are also massive big tech companies. They want to see how these proceedings go to see if the antitrust cards maybe end up impacting them as well.
Yeah, lots of tech companies paying close attention to this one. All right, Brian, thank you so much.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.